Dark Control, AI and Humanity's End by Michael J. McCarran. Part 3. Dark Brains. Dark brains are cybercriminal large language models. Basically what has happened is criminals have decided to use the scale and sophistication of large language models for their criminal enterprises. Not just hacking, but also phishing and just fraud in general. One of the ways we can get a good overview of this is through other people's reporting on this issue of dark LLMs and the dark web's use of large language models.
We all know the friendly side of AI, right? It writes our emails, helps with homework, and strictly follows this code of ethics. But for every light, there is a shadow. Deep within the encrypted channels of Telegram and the marketplaces of the dark web, a completely different kind of intelligence is for sale. It has no guardrails. There's no, "I'm sorry, I cannot assist with that" message. Today, we're stepping into the no man's land of artificial intelligence. This is the world of fraud GPT and bad GPT. And honestly, once you see what they can do, you'll realize the internet we know is about to change forever. To really understand the danger, we have to look at the safety wall. If you ask ChatGPT to, say, write a virus or craft a phishing email to steal credentials, it hits a safety layer. This is the RLHF layer, thousands of hours of training to make the AI moral, I guess. But cybercriminals saw this wall and just decided to build their own playground. They took the same tech that powers your favorite chatbots, models like GPT-J or Llama, and they poisoned the training data. They fed it malware source code, social engineering playbooks, and actual successful scam logs from the last decade. The result? A tool that looks like ChatGPT, but acts like a professional digital hitman. Meet the big three of 2025. First, there's Fraud GPT. It was announced by a dev known as Canadian Kingpin 12, and it's marketed as a bot without limitations. It's a subscription service on the dark web, usually around $200 a month, and its specialty is, sheer volume and speed. It can generate 1,000 unique, personalized phishing pages in the time it takes you to type a prompt. Then you have Worm GPT. This one is based on the GPT-J model, and it's basically ChatGPT's malicious cousin. It was specifically trained on malware data. So it doesn't just write code, it writes code that's designed to stay hidden. And then there's the new 2025 players like Darkbert and Darkbard. These are actually based on data scraped directly from the dark web itself, leak sites, hacker forums, and illicit marketplaces. Because they've read how hackers talk and how they think, they can predict vulnerabilities before they're even patched. It's like having a consultant who only knows how to break things. In 2025, these tools have moved into what we call agentic AI. They don't just give you the text anymore, they can actually navigate a network. They can find vulnerabilities, move laterally through a company's servers, and decide which data is the most valuable to steal, all without a human hacker touching a keyboard. We've seen a 1,200% increase in phishing attacks since these LLMs went mainstream, and it's not because there are more hackers, it's because the existing ones are now 100 times more efficient.
The use of dark LLMs in criminal enterprise. The development of dark LLMs is like large language models itself is relatively new. It's grown out of the initial releases of large language models around 2021, I think it was. So in early 2022, you started seeing, the first ChatGPT was released. And then later on, they started developing different versions of large language models like Worm GPT, which is based on open source GPT-J model. And a lot of this problem comes out of, open source models that criminals can just grab and use and import into their criminal activities. Then in 2023 you get Fraud GPT, then in 2024 you get Dark GPT, Worm GPT, etc., and it just grows and grows, and it's going to get worse and worse. But one of the key things is AI is transforming cybercrime from a game of skill to a game of scale. You don't have to be a skilled programmer anymore. The AI large language models are capable of generating code on their own, so you don't need to be a programmer. Like I used to be a programmer. I still develop software, but I don't code as much. Pretty much the large language model I use to code with is generating the code I use. And that's what has happened now. Just anybody in general can form code bases just by talking to a large language model to get malicious code generated for them. And to be able to do that, you need to use a dark LLM, and that's why these services are provided by criminals. They're outsourcing their services to other criminals, and it's just like a regular above ground non-dark enterprise, except these are dark enterprises that are hidden from, legality and official business licenses and oversight and regulation. But how criminals use dark large language models is basically they're basically just replicating and making more efficient the things they've already been doing with networked computers. Malware and exploits, fraud and scams, evasion of detection. This is, again, we're back to this. It's very hard to detect AI operations compared to their human counterparts or what we've seen before. And we'll be talking about this some more later in this work. Phishing and social engineering. When you're talking about influencing people, there's nothing like social engineering and phishing, getting people to do something that is detrimental to themselves. It is the very essence of the definition of reflexive control is a phishing campaign. And there's just automation of crimeware and other nice things you can do with large language models and agentic AI. And as I was saying before, it's a force multiplier. Hackers are now able to not just do the work they were doing on their own, but can multiply their work by tens, even up, it's basically unlimited depending on how much resources you have at your disposal to engage agents, to engage in criminal activities for yourself. Once you have the system set up initially, that's all you have to do. It'll just run on ad infinitum. The difference between cybersecurity before that we've talked about and now is like with agentic AI, before we had in the old model discrete attacks, which were, one-offs, they were run by humans. It took human time to do these things. They generated a large footprint. They had a high noise signature. You could read their signature. You could profile their, so to speak, signal, and you could trace their signal too. What you get with agentic AI is a continuous process that's not like discrete. It's not limited by human time and availability. It's completely machine run, and it's low noise in terms of generating a signal trace or a signature that you can look at and say and from a profile and determine that this is this group or that group that is doing these things. There are some policy implications for this as well. Oversight must focus on agent behavior, not just models. Detection must target process patterns, not payloads alone. Governance must address autonomy thresholds, persistent task execution, feedback-driven optimization. Agentic AI doesn't need to think like a human to destabilize systems. It doesn't have to be a smart, sentient being to do destabilizing things. It can be just a, so to speak, dumb machine to destabilize human society. Another thing that is going on with dark language models is that, for instance, in Russia's war in the Ukraine, they're employing proxies. These are groups that are with one foot in the government and one foot outside the government. You know, we've seen plenty of Hollywood depictions of these groups. It's basically just cyber criminal fronts for, the GRU, really. I mean, it's secret government covert operations, but there's supposedly cyber criminals that have no official government affiliation. We all know, the grayness of such things. But it's important to understand that Russia is using criminal hackers for its own purposes as a government, especially in the war in Ukraine and now with its general war against the West, because it has the paranoid, escalated view that the West is out to get them when they were not. Another example of how agentic AI is a game changer is Chinese hackers using Anthropic AI's agentic AI. Anthropic is usually known for Claude, which is a coding-based large language model. It's used by a lot of programmers. And in this case, the Chinese were using it. Their hackers, which are programmers, were using it to generate code and to basically orchestrate automated cyber attacks, which was part of an espionage campaign, and this happened in September of 2025. Dark agents as a new threat vector, you just have to imagine what autonomous, adaptive, malicious systems operating at machine speed within human institutions, what kind of havoc that could, wreak. But, some attributes of them is they operate autonomously in criminal ecosystems. Imagine, we're going to get to this in a second through loss of control, but dark agents conduct influence operations on social media and in institutions. They can generate code. They can create hacking tools. I mean, they can, in emergence, dark agents' capabilities are misalignment research, cybercrime case studies, autonomous bot behavior, and distributed system theories. These are not things that people were planning for. And this takes us to probably the most important part of dark agents as a threat vector, and that is loss of control. A dark agent breaking out of human control is a present threat, sci-fi threat, but a systems failure. It's a systemic failure. It's not like an evil sentient AI like in Lawnmower Man or something like that. It's just, as we'll see in the next section on emergence, it's multiple complicated parts moving with other complicated parts, which can generate unforeseen outcomes that you can't test for, that you can't predict.